watching Backyard Professor Chess videos. It's a stormy day today, so I'm down in my basement making some chess videos. This particular game is played by Kashdan and Hammerman. Kashdan is the white player. He's given queen-rook odds because he is so much stronger than his opponent. Sometimes these kind of games are really interesting and instructive also. I know Nimzovich played a lot of exhibition games. It gave a lot of people a lot of fun gathering to watch the real Grandmaster work, even with a lesser opponent, by giving them odds. It's kind of fun, but these can also be quite instructive. How Kashdan answers the moves is very interesting. They play the French defense. E4, E6, D4, D6. Kashdan goes ahead and pushes the E-pawn up and immediately goes to C5. Now he brings out his queen instantly. Now, we're in the opening. He's odds down on a rook. The center at this point is closed. There's a whole lot of pawn clutter there. So it's not a crisis that he brings out his queen so flipping fast. But the name of this game is speed in developing, because he's already down a rook. So he wants to develop very, very fast, right? So this is how he does it. Now, of course, he'll take the pawn. Now, the queen could come over here and take that pawn. It is a central pawn. And I know there are some people who get real freaked out about doubled pawns, but look at what these doubled pawns are doing for a minute. You're hitting this square and this square, this pawn is hitting this square and this square, and this pawn is hitting this square and this square. I mean, there's an entire central column of influence, and there's only one meager lone pawn who has absolutely no support whatsoever. So black is not necessarily weakened here. He's got a real strong center, actually, in that regard. Isn't that fascinating to see that? Kashdan brings out another unit. So this is his opponent. Now he drops down to H3. Notice, because the knight was threatening the queen, instead of coming back over and down, he leaves the queen out. I mean, you've already invested in developing the queen. Now keep her out there in the field and find a safe but a good effective post for her. That's essentially what he's doing. He's developing here. Kashdan continues to bring out more and more power, hitting this way, coming out this way. B6 is opening up the bishop here. The bishop is somewhat opened here, but it also gives somewhat central support for a piece to put there if he so desires. Queen comes over to G3, and knight comes to F5. Now, that's a pretty decent post for a knight. He's got the pawn backing him up. He is influencing the center better there than on the edge of the board, so that's not a bad move. It's putting the question to the queen, putting a little pressure on the queen. He's getting more centralized. That's okay. That works. In fact, that knight is so strong that Kashdan realizes, I'm willing to trade the knight for the bishop. And the reason why is because, as a general rule, when you have a lot of stuff in the center of the board like this, it's more or less a closed board, and knights are very valuable in these positions. The bishops want the long open stretches. That's a beautiful angle for that bishop. This one has a beautiful angle here and here. With a bunch of pawns here, the knights are more valuable. So Kashdan was willing to make that exchange because his opponent should have kept the knight. And of course, he's going to destroy the king side pretty quick. The queen comes up to here and the rook has to go over. Now watch. He eliminates a central pawn. Now the weakness of the double pawns show up, huh? They can have a strength a dynamic strength if they gain support from either another pawn or another power. But if they don't, if they just sit there, they can become targets. And you don't see Kashdan's opponents coming in here to support those pawns. So at this point in time, Kashdan does the proper thing. He says, hey, I've got targets to hit. So he does so. The bishop does develop out here to a6, giving him a long, beautiful diagonal, preventing Kashdan from castling. That's going to keep the king in the center of the board. Now, if he can maintain this breakup, preventing Kashdan from castling, leaving his king in the center, then he's going to want to begin to marshal an attack very fast also. But Kashdan is developing rather speedily. He's coming out as well. In fact, now he's picking off targets. Brings up the knight to d7, development again. Watch this, the bishop to g5, again and again and again. We see the Grandmaster systematically developing piece after piece after piece after piece, because as they get together out in the field, they can begin to coordinate either attack or defense. And notice what side of the board Kashdan is playing on with the majority of his army. That's right, he's here. He's in his opponent's territory. His opponent hasn't reached his territory yet. So the question is Kashdan freaking out about nothing, worried about his king? Is he bringing everything back to protect his king? Heavens, no. There's no threat to the king. Yeah, he's sitting out there on the sunny porch, sipping his martini, enjoying the day, waving to the folks walking by. He's not worried about any kind of an attack. There's nothing there because he is preoccupied with defending his own king because Kashdan's taken it to him through again, a superior development. This is critical. You see this over and over and over and over and over again. Well, the time has come. He's got to put some pressure on some of these pieces, so he pushes the pawn to pressure the bishop. Kashdan answers and he says, well, okay, I'll push the pawn to pressure the knight. Again, centralizing right toward the king. I mean, he just keeps pushing to the king no matter what, right? It's quite a fight here. He went ahead and took the bishop. What do you think Kashdan did here? This is so remarkably interesting, what he's got here. He has several options. One of the very best options he has, because he's got such pressure, is to simply eliminate that cotton-picking knight. He would actually catch up with material. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces. However, notice this bishop over here on a6. It really hasn't done a lot. It hasn't influenced the game other than preventing the king from castling. But since there's virtually no one within a country mile of that king, it really doesn't accomplish anything, does it? It's off to the side of the board. It's not involved in defense or offense. It was just almost kind of a waste of time. Even though he developed the piece, it had nothing to do with the board, with this current game, did it? Kashdan does something incredible. He goes check. He pulls his queen up to g6. And you go, what? Can't he see the pawn there? Yeah, he really can. And the pawn takes the queen. And now Kashdan puts his knight right there and goes checkmate. These kind of games are interesting, aren't they? Once again, notice the theme is, even though he began as a rook down on odds, Kashdan immediately began developing. And not only did he didn't just develop pieces willy-nilly now, understand this, he developed pieces, every one of his pieces became superior to his black counterpart piece, and he was moving them toward the other side. This automatically put his opponent on the defense, and he didn't really rally a lot of pieces together for the defense. He began his defense 1 or 2 moves too late. By then, Kashdan had a pawn and 3 of his powers up into the black territory, and he basically just overwhelmed black. So let that be a lesson to you. Make your own individual pieces superior to your opponent's pieces. Put them all out there in the field together and coordinate, and put together attacks or defenses. The more pieces you have in the game, the stronger your game is going to be. You will have more options of going more places. And when they provide a defense, you will have more options because you had so many powers. You will have more options to overcome that defense and still win the game. So that's a cool little chess lesson as far as I'm concerned. So, hey, thanks for watching my videos. These are fun to make. I'm feeling good getting back into the groove of this. Have a great life. Study chess hard. Enjoy it. Have fun. And remember one final most important thing. I will see you guys in the next video.